Hi, welcome to Bookie. Today we will unlock the book The Facebook Effect, the inside story of the company that is connecting the world. A genius, a former Harvard University student, a dropout, a startup business entrepreneur, and a world top billionaire in Forbes ranking. Hearing these tags, you may be involuntarily reminded of Bill Gates. But our protagonist today is Mark Zuckerberg. Like Gates, Zuckerberg also dropped out of Harvard to start his business and achieved huge success, building his own business empire. Bill Gates founded Microsoft and built it into the world's largest software supplier, making him the richest person in the world at just the age of 31. Comparably, Zuckerberg founded Facebook at 19. In Forbes' World's Top 10 Youngest Billionaires list of 2010, Zuckerberg, who was then 25, ranked first with a net worth of $4 billion, becoming the youngest of all of them on the list. Because of this young man was hailed by many as the next Bill Gates. In The Facebook Effect, the author gives a detailed account of why and how Zuckerberg founded Facebook. The book also reveals why Facebook was able to outshine other social networking companies and become an unparalleled force. This book was written by David Kirkpatrick, an experienced journalist and author with 31 years of writing experience. He is the former senior editor of Internet and Technology at Fortune magazine. Before he started writing this book, he wrote a weekly column called Fast Forward at Fortune for several years. He also created and hosted Fortune's Brainstorm Conference. To write this book, Kirkpatrick interviewed over 130 people, including co-founders of Facebook, its employees, investors, potential investors and partners, thereby providing readers with an authentic record of the development of Facebook. This book is a very enjoyable read. Chris Anderson, the author of The Long Tail, spoke highly of it. He said, Kirkpatrick's amazing reporting details what happens when the hacker culture turns into a multi-billion-dollar firm. Mark Zuckerberg sought to maintain that hacker energy, and it's fascinating to read what resulted from it. Also, Bloomberg Businessweek's columnist Rich Jaroslawski praised this book as engrossing in a detailed and scrupulously fair historical account of Facebook. In this Bookie, we'll introduce this book through the following 3 parts. Part 1, How Zuckerberg Founded Facebook. Part 2, How Facebook Evolved under Zuckerberg's leadership. Part 3, How Facebook Became a Business Empire. Mark Zuckerberg was born in a middle-class family in New York, USA. His father is a dentist and his mother is a psychologist. When he was still a boy, his father began teaching him basic knowledge about programming. Later, his father even hired a software developer as his tutor as Zuckerberg showed great talent in the field. He had the benefit of excellent parenting throughout his childhood. A talented boy as he was always a top student at school. During high school, Zuckerberg's academic performance won him every honor and award available, including prizes in math, astronomy, physics, and classical languages. He was also captain of the fencing team. Additionally, he could read and write French, Hebrew, Latin, and ancient Greek. Zuckerberg's passion for programming started young. He got his first computer at the age of 10, launching his amazing lifelong relationship with this device. His computer skills were mostly self-taught. When he was in high school, he designed a plug-in for an MP3 player which could make song suggestions based on their listening history. His enthusiasm for programming grew even stronger when he was in college. In his sophomore year, he developed a program called Course Match. One could click on a course to see who was signed up, or click on a person to see the courses he or she was taking. This program soon became popular among Harvard students. Not long after, Zuckerberg developed another program called FaciMash. In it, users could pick the best-looking person from a bunch of photos. The photos were mostly taken the day students arrived for orientation at Harvard, and were maintained by each of the Harvard houses. In order to get access to the photos, Zuckerberg hacked and downloaded names and photos from the dorm's computer network. Taking advantage of the students' curiosity and vanity, FaciMash became an immediate hit without an official launch. However, due to the inappropriate manner in which he got access to the photos, Zuckerberg came under fire from the school. Since this software project aimed to pick the hottest student on campus and photos of students were rated and reviewed, members of two women's groups began to protest against it. As Zuckerberg was accused of violations of the college's code of conduct in the way the site handled security, copyright, and privacy, the site was soon shut down. Zuckerberg apologized to the women's groups, claiming he had mainly thought of the project as a computer science experiment, and that he had no idea it would spread so quickly. Even though the FaceMash project came to a premature end, Zuckerberg saw the great potential of online networking and became all the more interested in social networking sites. The Harvard Crimson later published an editorial describing how to build an electronic inventory by putting student photo directories online. The editors took the view that if a student could build FaceMash, there was no reason a programmer couldn't build its own appropriate catalog. As long as students would voluntarily upload their own photos, much of the trouble surrounding FaceMash would be gone. Zuckerberg revealed that it was exactly this Crimson editorial that gave him the initial idea for building the Facebook. In February 2004, Zuckerberg officially founded the Facebook. Its home screen read, "The Facebook is an online directory that connects people through social networks at colleges. You can use the Facebook to search for people at your school, find out who are in your classes, look up your friends' friends, see a visualization of your social network." That laid the first brick in the wall of a social networking empire that was going to take the world by storm not long after. Zuckerberg was 19 by then. The target users of the Facebook were Harvard students. They signed up with their real names and sent email invitations to their friends to join. To sign up, you create a profile with a pretty or handsome pictures of yourself, along with a bit of personal information. You could indicate whether you were single or in a relationship, include your email address, indicate which courses you are taking, display your favorite books, movies, quotes, and so on. It had some other practical functions as well, such as adding classmates to be your friends, creating groups, arranging meetings for clubs, and posting notices. Among all of its functions, the most characteristic one was the poke. If you were interested in another user, you could direct a poke at them on a link on their page, making an indication show up on their homepage. Since young college students were the Facebook's targeted users, much activity on the Facebook from the beginning was driven by the romantic and lustful interests of young adults. In a later interview, the Crimson asked Zuckerberg what his motives were for founding the Facebook. He answered, "The nature of the site is that each user's experience improves if they can get their friends to join it. Making the site fun and giving its users a better experience were Zuckerberg's motives for founding the Facebook." The author then concluded that for Zuckerberg, making the Facebook fun was more important than making it a business. It was a statement that would reverberate down through the short history of Facebook. 1 week after the launch of the Facebook, about half of Harvard undergraduates had signed up. The Facebook became an instant hit with ever-increasing user numbers. On the second week of its launch, students at schools other than Harvard even started emailing Zuckerberg asking when they could have it too. As seen from the quickly growing user base, it was clear that what the Facebook's founders wanted to achieve for its users, which is fun, was exactly what everyone was looking for. Zuckerberg hired his roommate Dustin Moskovitz about a week after the Facebook launched. Moskovitz was also a keen programmer. Without any formal training, he could accomplish all of the assignments Zuckerberg gave him. Zuckerberg's ambition was to expand the Facebook beyond Harvard to other campuses. Quickly thereafter, the Facebook also became a hit at other colleges. In order to keep the server running smoothly, many new users had to wait in order to get signed up. In the summer break of 2004, Zuckerberg and Moskovitz went together to Silicon Valley, California, where numerous high-tech companies are located. Zuckerberg's ambition in Silicon Valley was much bigger than getting rich instantly. He wanted to build a lasting culture. He wanted to do his best to take over the world from the previous generation. Later, Zuckerberg hired Sean Parker as the CEO of the Facebook. Parker had previously co-founded 2 internet companies, but was kicked out for various reasons. Since the Facebook was just starting up, they needed someone who knew how to build and run a company and who had many contacts in Silicon Valley. Parker fit their needs. Subsequently, Parker incorporated the Facebook in Delaware and started to negotiate with investors. In the early phase of the Facebook, they could keep the site operating by paying for a handful of servers. However, as their user base grew, they needed to buy more servers in order to ensure the site's smooth operation, which required a lot more money. Zuckerberg began selling some advertisements in order to keep the company running. He would refuse ads that would slow down the speed of their website or undermine the user experience. Initially though, revenue from advertising was not enough for the company. Luckily, Parker managed to secure $600,000 investments, among which a venture capitalist called Peter Thiel invested $500,000 in exchange for a 10% stake in the company. This was the Facebook Series A round, which became one of the most momentous investments of all time in Silicon Valley. Though Zuckerberg looked younger than his age and was shy, he made sure that he was in charge. He had a clear vision of what he wanted for the company. His bottom line was that he would never betray his original aspirations simply for money, a critical guiding ethic for their products. By the end of the summer break of 2004, the Facebook had attracted more than 200,000 users. Zuckerberg and Moskowitz then decided to drop out of school to focus on running their site. It was clear that the Facebook had become a rising star in Silicon Valley. With steady user growth, the Facebook decided to hire more employees, making an official leader essential in order to manage the company. Thus, Zuckerberg switched his focus from programming to something more important. He took over the seat of CEO and started to officially shoulder the responsibility of managing. How could a young man merely in his early 20s shoulder such a heavy responsibility as a CEO? Primarily, his tenacious learning habit played a critical role during this period. He picked up management skills from reading books, specifically those by Peter F. Drucker, the father of modern management. We've covered some of Drucker's books in our platform for your learning pleasure, including Innovation and Entrepreneurship, The Essential Drucker, and The Effective Executive. In addition to this, Zuckerberg sought guidance from his idol Don Graham, the CEO of the Washington Post. Zuckerberg once flew to Washington and spent a few days with this mentor, learning how to read financial statements, doing financial analysis, and managing a company. He also learned how to exercise his authority in management through meeting with senior executives from other companies. Thirdly, Zuckerberg established a corporate culture unlike anything before. The corporate culture of the Facebook was an institutionalized, dorm-like casualness, oddly fused to intense devotion and exertion. Since most employees were young people, they hung out in groups, going to the nearby cafe to talk about ideas and so on. Such an institutionalized casualness strongly spoke to young people's nature and manifested the company's vigor. Zuckerberg was only 21 by then. As a CEO, he inevitably faced some small challenges in the sphere of people management. While some things had to be treated in a serious manner, his approach was sometimes to joke the problem away. One time, a young woman complained to him that an employee had harassed her in the lunch line. Zuckerberg's response was to publicly embarrass the perpetrator in front of everyone. "It has come to my attention," he announced at a company meeting, "that one of you said to a girl, 'I want to put my teeth in your ass.'" He paused. The room was silent. Then he continued, "So, what does that even mean?" Everyone laughed. Then the matter was dropped. Running a company involves dealing with a lot of pressure all the time, but Zuckerberg managed to handle that. He always kept calm and never lost his temper even during the most hectic of times. In the summer of 2005, Parker, the company's first CEO, was arrested by the police for a felony of possessing cocaine. Though he was released immediately as there was not an indictment, the board members insisted that his behavior would damage the company, then already rebranded as Facebook. They argued that Facebook was a mainstream brand, and it thus must always have a clean reputation. Under intense pressure, Parker agreed to leave the board and give his seat to Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg had been holding control of 2 board seats since the beginning. With Parker's departure, Zuckerberg held 3 board seats, which gave him indisputable discretionary authority in the company. Along with the development of Facebook, Zuckerberg grew into an insightful and competent leader. While working on improving his own management skills, he was continuously surrounding himself with outstanding people with befitting talents. For instance, he hired Mark Andreessen, who is one of the most renowned investors and entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, as his advisor. He also persuaded Adam D'Angelo, currently CEO of Quora, to join Facebook. D'Angelo later became the chief technology officer in the company. He also recruited senior executives from big companies like Amazon and Google. With their rich professional experience, they helped Facebook to further expand its business scope. Except for the few management talents, Facebook has a unique criterion for hiring employees, which was drawn up by Zuckerberg himself based on his personal experiences. Facebook prefers recruiting young people. At Facebook, dropping out of school is regarded as a virtue. Those who dropped out, who challenged conventions, and who are self-taught geniuses are particularly preferred by the company. Zuckerberg promised that if one wanted to continue school after dropping out to work for Facebook, the company would pay for their tuition. To attract more talented people to join them, Zuckerberg once set up a card table in a Stanford computer science department building, with a sign reading, "Why work at Google? Come to the Facebook." As a rising star of social networking companies, Facebook gradually attracted other companies' attention. Several companies showed their intention to acquire Facebook. In January 2005, Viacom's MTV subsidiary offered a $75 million acquisition deal, but Zuckerberg turned it down. In November 2005, Michael Wolff, a longtime media industry consultant at McKinsey & Company, joined MTV as president. Almost immediately, Wolff took on the task of cultivating Zuckerberg. After the two got acquainted, Wolff brought up the idea of acquisition again. "What kind of number might make you interested anyway?" he asked. "I think it's worth at least $2 billion, said the young adult who had launched Facebook in his dorm room only 20 months earlier. As Wolff later recalled their conversation, he said, "It wasn't like I want $2 billion. It was like, even if you pay me $2 billion, I wouldn't want to sell the company, thank you." Even though Zuckerberg had turned Wolff down, many people in Facebook still thought that if the offer was good enough, selling Facebook might not be a bad idea. They would seriously consider it if someone would indeed offer $1 billion in cash. Thus, Viacom again made a $1.5 billion offer to acquire Facebook, now established just 2 years ago. The initial payment would be $800 million in cash, with the remaining $700 million to be paid depending on Facebook's business performance. That was the first time that Facebook was close to being sold. However, in the end, the two sides still could not agree on the payment method of the remaining $700 million. Facebook's negotiators felt that the deal's terms were too complicated and the payout too uncertain. Moreover, Zuckerberg seemed to grow unsure about the idea of acquisition. He was saying things like Google was smart not to sell early, look at how well they did. He had a very optimistic vision for Facebook and believed that his company would reach the same height as Google sooner or later. In June 2006, Yahoo decided to acquire Facebook. Yahoo CEO Terry Semel began to get in contact with Zuckerberg to discuss the pertinent issues. Soon, Yahoo implied that they might be willing to pay $1 billion to acquire Facebook. Two different voices emerged immediately within Facebook. Zuckerberg and Moskowitz didn't want to sell, but those relatively older board members supported the acquisition. Fortunately, something unexpected happened and relieved the tension. In the middle of July, Yahoo's stock price plunged by 22%, so they cut the offer down to $850 million. The deal fell apart. Again, in September 2006, Yahoo approached Zuckerberg with the intention of an acquisition. However, by then, Facebook's news feed had been well accepted by the market, and they had very healthy user growth. With promising market prospects, Zuckerberg had the confidence to say no to selling Facebook. The senior executives who actively supported the acquisition lost Zuckerberg's trust. He demanded for his employees to be absolutely loyal to the company. Anyone who would ever want to sell the company again would no longer be his ally. Even though many believed that turning down Yahoo was not a wise move, Zuckerberg insisted that Facebook had infinite potential. Eventually, he withstood the pressure and kept the company, leading it toward an ever higher level. Today, Facebook has become one of the world's largest social networking sites, an internet giant like Amazon, Google, Twitter, and eBay. Many small businesses are attached to Facebook in order to make profit. How indeed did Facebook stand out from the ever-growing population of social media platforms? One critical factor is its constant product innovation. Zuckerberg was very particular about product innovation, something that he is a genius at. He always focuses his attention on products that facilitate interactions between users. Developing and continuously improving customer experience were more important than making money. To him, this is the real value of Facebook. Facebook is easy to use. All you need to do is signing up with your personal information, and then you can browse others' information. This is a primary reason for Facebook's success. In the beginning, a user was allowed to post only one profile picture on his or her homepage. Some users would change that picture frequently and wanted to be able to post more photos. Considering users' needs, after a lengthy debate, Facebook decided to add a new photos feature. Unlike other photo hosting services that allow uploaders to tag their photos based on its content, like scenery, food, and so on, photos uploaded to Facebook can be tagged in just one way, with the names of the people in them. As such, when you upload a picture and tag someone in it, the one who was tagged will receive a message alerting him or her about it. Two other innovative functions were also included in the Photos feature. The first one allows a person to click anywhere in the picture to see the next. The second one compresses the photos being uploaded, so that the upload speed is much faster. These two important innovations were made completely out of the consideration of user experience. Within a very short time, Facebook became the most popular photo hosting website, and the Photos feature the most popular feature of Facebook. The Photos feature not only strengthened the relations among users, but also mapped their social network. Facebook's Newsfeed feature helped it attract more users as well. Newsfeed highlights what's happening in your social circles on Facebook. It displays a personalized list of news stories throughout the day, such as Friend A's updated relationship status, Friend B's recently uploaded photos, and Friend C's new Facebook group. Despite its success, surprisingly this feature was not welcomed by users at first. On the contrary, many users voiced strong opposition to it. A group called Students Against Facebook Newsfeed was established and its members increased rapidly, reaching over 700,000 within 3 days. People were against this feature because they felt that it violated their privacy, and that it was just too creepy, too stalker-esque. Zuckerberg took the users' objections seriously. He asked the software engineers to write certain new functions into the privacy settings, giving users some control about what information they wanted to get broadcasted through Newsfeed. Zuckerberg also wrote a blog post to apologize to Facebook users. After this adaptation, Newsfeed was gradually accepted by the public, and Facebook's user base soared. Once the Newsfeed issue was solved, Facebook began its transformation into a platform for software applications created by external entities. Facebook made some changes in its algorithm, so that newly installed applications were announced in the news feed. 6 months later, half of Facebook's users had at least one application on their profile. As developers could make money from building applications on Facebook, many of them were attracted to Facebook's platform. The book mentioned an example of a high school student who developed an application on Facebook and sold it after 6 months, earning an amount sufficient to pay for a year in college. As Zuckerberg said, they can build a business inside of Facebook. They can run ads, they can have sponsorships, they can sell things, they can link off to another site. We are just agnostic. There are going to be companies whose only product is an application that lives within Facebook. This feature radically changed users' experience with Facebook, making them willing to spend more time on it. For high-tech professionals, they would now be left behind if they didn't own a Facebook account. Besides product innovation, Facebook is also successful because it's profitable. Ongoing innovation is the reason behind the company's growing user base, but how did Facebook turn its social success into a lasting money-making business? We all know that it requires money to run a company. As such, it required a very large amount of money to pay for 500 employees and maintain the hundreds of servers in its data centers. The company was thus quickly burning through the $375 million it had raised from Microsoft, Li Ka-shing, and the Samware brothers when Sheryl Sandberg was hired as Facebook's COO. To solve that financial crisis, Sandberg decided to transform Facebook into an advertising powerhouse. After several in-depth discussions between Sandberg and Zuckerberg, an idea gradually emerged: the engagement ad. What is an engagement ad? As Facebook's users are all real people using their real names, their personal information is thus accurate, and advertisers can now target their potential users more precisely. An engagement ad is a modest-looking message from an advertiser on users' home pages that invites them to do something on the page. It might ask you to comment on a video in hopes that friends will be drawn into the conversation. It might be a product giveaway. Or it might enable you to click on the ad to instantly become a fan of a product's Facebook page. Facebook charges at least $5 per 1,000 views for these ads. Within the first year of the launch of engagement ads, Facebook generated tens of millions of dollars. Engagement ads quickly ensured Facebook lasting profits. Furthermore, Facebook also invented what is known as the gift economy. The essence of Facebook's gift economy is sharing. That is to say, when I share something beneficial with someone out of gratitude and generosity, that person will then give something back to me. Facebook's cooperation with other internet companies is based on a gift economy model. When people share what they have, others will give something back. That creates the culture of information sharing. When information transparency becomes the norm, it will change the way society works. A highly transparent organization is fairer and can operate better. Zuckerberg believes that with Facebook's transparency, it's feasible to build a large-scale gift economy. In general, a gift economy is beneficial for society as it allows people to exchange ideas, express emotions, help and support each other. Especially when it comes to political activism, Facebook offers an unconventional platform to contribute to society. When we say something on a political subject, we are exposing our views, and others may not necessarily agree with us. Since we are identified by our names on the platform, we make ourselves vulnerable to criticism. Nonetheless, by doing that, we are in essence giving a gift into this free sharing economy of ideas about political issues, and that gift may ultimately strengthen the policy. Facebook is by far the largest online platform where people can complain about and protest against certain policies. Since Facebook can generate large-scale communication, it can quickly get a large number of people to pay attention to something and actively participate in it. In this way, Facebook is influencing politics. We have now summarized the major points of this book, The Facebook Effect. Let's take a moment to review it. In the first part, we talked about how Zuckerberg showed his talent in programming early on. As an undergraduate student at Harvard, the 19-year-old Zuckerberg made the Facebook website with the initial idea of building an online photo directory. It became a hit among its student users. In the summer of 2004, Zuckerberg officially moved the company to Silicon Valley and rapidly expanded its business and grew his user base. The company soon secured its Series A investment. By the end of the summer, Zuckerberg decided to quit school and focus on running his company. In the second part, we saw how Zuckerberg started to transform from a programmer to a real manager. At the same time, he surrounded himself with outstanding people befitting Facebook's needs to help him run the company. As Facebook was showing ever greater potentials, It was getting attractive acquisition offers from some media giants, such as Viacom and Yahoo, and Zuckerberg turned them all down. Step by step, Zuckerberg brought Facebook to a new higher level. In the third part, we examine how Facebook became a business empire through rapid product innovation. With features that focus on improving user experience, such as photos, news feed, and applications, Facebook gains increasing popularity. Engagement ads allow Facebook to turn its social success into a lasting money-making business, fueling its expansion. The sharing nature and transparency of Facebook pose a profound influence on society, making Facebook irreplaceable. Some people say that Facebook is a magical place. It has opened up a new era of the internet, making it no longer virtual, but real. There, we can interact with our friends in various modes and make new friends through old friends. It's the power of friendship that has made Facebook increasingly influential. You may feel that the birth of Facebook is just a miraculous coincidence. But in fact, all the great inventions of human society have long been in our minds. In essence, what Zuckerberg did was making the exciting dreams come true step by step. Surely it's hard for us to copy his legendary success, but using his example, every one of us can learn the spirit of innovation and adventure, risk-taking entrepreneurship, and dedication to a cause. Awesome! You just unlocked all key insights.